Absolutely not. Never again. Her voice didn't crack. She didn't hesitate. She didn't even look at me. And the room laughed. Loud, effortless laughter like this was a sitcom, and I was just the punchline of the week. I stared at my wife as she sipped from her wine glass, smiling at the ceiling like she'd just delivered the perfect roast. Would you marry your spouse again? That was the card. That was the question. I didn't even have time to answer. She just took the stage, confident, casual, cruel. I didn't laugh because I already knew what was in her phone. See, 2 nights before this game night, when she said she was going out with the girls, I watched her Uber icon drift to a hotel by the freeway. Not a bar, not a restaurant, a hotel. Room 213. Checked in under a name that wasn't hers. And when she got home, she kissed me like she'd had tacos and gossip. So, no, I didn't laugh when she said she'd never marry me again. I didn't flinch. I didn't speak. I reached down slowly, unzipped the inner lining of my jacket, and pulled out the thing I wasn't supposed to have. Her second phone, turned on, battery at 9%. Unlocked with her fingerprint while she slept. I placed it on the table like a grenade. Chloe, Liam's wife, the only one not glued to her drink, leaned in. Wait, what is that? I tapped the screen, opened the gallery. 107 photos and 4 videos, all from the past 30 days. A man's hand on her thigh. A mirror selfie she took in lingerie I never saw her wear. Screenshots of her texting someone saved as Drill Sergeant. You make me feel like a teenager again. He still has no idea. Game night is tomorrow. I might go home with a ring and come back single. That one hit the room like a body falling through a ceiling. Liam choked on his drink. Sophia dropped her cards. Evelyn finally looked at me. I said nothing. Not yet, because I wasn't done, and neither was she. Evelyn didn't speak. She stared at the phone like it was some cursed object from a horror movie, as if touching it would burn her fingers off. The room was dead silent. Nobody reached for another drink. Nobody made a joke. Even the always loud Bluetooth speaker playing retro pop went quiet, like it knew something sacred had just shattered. I watched her eyes dart across the screen. She knew what was on it. Every photo, every message, every lie. She typed with the same hands that used to hold mine during Sunday brunch. She opened her mouth, but before she could say anything, the phone buzzed. Everyone jumped. A new notification flashed across the lock screen. You up? Eyes from Drill Sergeant. It was 8:14 p.m. We were all very much up. Evelyn lunged for the phone. I pulled it back, not angrily, just fast enough to say, no more lies, not tonight. Then I looked around the room. Not one person would meet my eyes. These were our friends, the game night crew, the people who once toasted our anniversary with personalized wine glasses, but none of them said a word. I turned to Liam, the only one who'd ever invited me out one-on-one. You knew? He shook his head slowly, but his face turned the same shade as the Merlot in his glass. Evelyn finally found her voice. It's not what you think, she said, almost whispering. Please, just not here. Why not here? I said. This is where you said you'd never marry me again. Seems fitting. She reached for my arm, and for a second, a real stupid second, I almost let her touch me. Like I still needed to feel loved. Like I still believed any of this could be fixed with a hand on my sleeve. But then I remembered the receipts, the Uber history, the text she accidentally sent me 2 weeks ago that was meant for him. Bring the same tie. You looked hot in it last time. I'm not a hot guy. I don't even wear ties. That message hit me harder than I'd like to admit. So I stepped back. She said, "Can we please talk somewhere private?" I nodded slowly. Then I looked at the group and said, "Hey, you all wanted brutal honesty, right? Consider this my turn." And I walked out. But here's the part I didn't expect.
She didn't follow me. Not then, not 5 minutes later, not ever. Which means either she was too ashamed or she had nowhere else to run. But I wasn't going home alone that night, because someone else at that table, someone I never once suspected, they followed me out the door. And what they told me in the parking lot shattered what little I had left. I didn't know where I was walking. I just knew I had to get out of that house before I did something stupid like cry in front of them, or scream, or worse, apologize for ruining their evening with the truth. It's insane how your world can collapse in the middle of a game night while people are still chewing cheese cubes and pretending things are fine. My face felt numb, like it wasn't even mine. The cold air outside hit me harder than I expected, and I realized I was still holding the phone, hers, the one she thought I'd never find. I stood under the porch light for a second, trying to decide whether to drive or just walk until my legs gave out. That's when I heard the door open behind me. I didn't turn around. I thought it might be Evelyn. Part of me hoped it was. I wanted her to say something, anything that would make this make sense. I knew it wouldn't happen, but I still wanted to hear her voice one more time before I left. But it wasn't Evelyn. It was Sophia. I turned, confused. She wasn't wearing a coat, just her hoodie with the broken zipper and a wine stain on the cuff. "Hey," she said, quiet, "can I talk to you for a second?" I blinked. "Yeah, sure. You okay?" She laughed, but it was one of those bitter laughs people do right before they drop a bomb. "I don't know if you want to hear this, but I think you deserve to." I nodded slowly. "Okay."
She looked around like she was checking for spies, then stepped closer. I didn't say anything inside because I didn't want to make it worse. But you need to know something. This thing with Evelyn, it's not new, and it's not just with that guy. What do you mean, not just with that guy? I mean, she swallowed hard, he's not the only one. I felt the ground tilt, like actually tilt. For a moment, I thought I was going to throw up. She's been seeing someone else too, for months, maybe longer, Sophia said. And for a moment, I thought she was going to cry. And I didn't know how to tell you because it's Liam. My brain didn't compute it at first. What? She nodded quickly, her voice cracking. My Liam, my husband. They were texting on his old tablet. He forgot to log out one day, and I saw everything. Messages, photos, plans to accidentally run into each other during errands. I stepped back like I'd been slapped. You're serious? I wish I wasn't. But Liam, he looked surprised tonight. He said he didn't know about Evelyn and the other guy. Because he didn't. He only knows about himself. He has no idea she's been seeing someone else too. And now that I've said it out loud, I don't even know if that guy is the only one either. There was a long, heavy silence between us. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked. A porch light flickered. Someone inside laughed. The kind of laugh people force when they want to pretend nothing's wrong. I looked at Sophia, and I realized for the first time that she looked just as broken as I felt. I didn't tell you to hurt you, she said finally. I just couldn't sit there and watch you think it was one guy. She's been playing everyone, including me. And just like that, my anger turned into something worse. Humiliation. Not only was I betrayed, I was the last one to find out. And even worse, I didn't know who else knew. I didn't know who else in that room had watched me smile like a fool while my wife flirted with their husbands behind my back. Had they all known? Had they pitied me? Sophia wrapped her arms around herself and looked away. I'm sorry, Daniel. And then, just as I was about to say something, anything, the second phone buzzed again. I looked down. New message from Drill Sergeant. That was messy. She okay? Sophia read it over my shoulder. She stepped back and said, Wait, he knows about game night. I opened the thread. My heart sank because he didn't just know. He was there. Somewhere in that room, hidden behind a different name, a different face, a different lie. He'd been watching the entire thing play out, and I had no idea who he was. I stared at the message, my hands starting to tremble. Sophia leaned in, her eyes wide as she reread it, and this time, she didn't speak. I could feel the chill crawl up my spine like cold water soaking into the back of my shirt. This wasn't just an affair. This wasn't some faceless guy hiding in the margins of her life. Whoever drill sergeant was, he was close. Close enough to know game night had gone south. Close enough to text her right after I dropped the phone on the table. And worst of all, close enough to know she was spiraling, even though her phone had never left the room. Which meant one thing. He had been there, in that house. Sophia stepped back, visibly shaken. Wait, you don't think it's one of them, do you? Like one of the guys in there? I didn't answer. I couldn't. My mind was already spiraling through every man we'd invited into our home. Every laugh, every handshake, every casual beer or backyard barbecue where I was too busy making burgers while my wife whispered something behind me. "Let's go," I said suddenly, and started walking back toward the porch. Sophia grabbed my arm. "Daniel, wait, you're not thinking straight." "No, I'm thinking too straight. I just don't like what I'm seeing." The moment we stepped back through the door, the air changed. You could feel it. Every conversation had dried up. Everyone was scattered now, pretending to look at their phones or whispering in pairs. The game cards were still on the floor. Evelyn was gone. Only her half-empty glass sat on the coffee table, lipstick smudged across the rim like a fossil. I scanned the room quickly. Liam was still hunched in the kitchen, texting furiously. Noah and his wife, Isabella, stiffly seated like department store mannequins. And Ben, that quiet and bearded guy from Evelyn's old job, who always came alone, even though he said he had a girlfriend who didn't like people. He wasn't even technically part of the couples group, but Evelyn had invited him a few times over the past year. Said he was safe, whatever that meant. He was standing in the corner by the bookshelf, one hand in his pocket, watching me. I walked straight toward him. "Hey, Ben." He smiled a little, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Hey, Daniel. Rough night, huh?" I held up the second phone. "You know anything about this?" He glanced at it for half a second, too fast, then shook his head. "No idea, man. Evelyn's." Sophia stepped forward, folding her arms. "You were texting her. We saw it." He raised his eyebrows, looking genuinely confused. Or maybe just practiced. "I don't even have her number. Look, this is nuts. You think I'm the guy she's been seeing?" I didn't blink. "I think someone in this room is, and unless you want to tell me why the messages she's getting are time-stamped seconds after I drop this phone on the table, I'd say now's the time to start talking." Ben stepped back. "Okay, well, I don't need this drama. I came here for drinks and trivia night, not whatever this is." Ben stepped back. Barely noticeable, just a tiny line above his collar, but enough. I saw it. Sophia saw it too. And then something happened I didn't expect. Noah spoke from behind us, his voice across the kitchen counter so calm it made my skin crawl. "It's not him." Everyone turned. Noah didn't even look up from his drink. "I mean," he continued, tapping his glass, "he's an idiot, but he's not that guy." I narrowed my eyes. "And you know that because?" He finally looked at me, smiled. "Because I've seen the messages too." "What?" "I've seen them months ago when Evelyn left her iPad at our place by accident. Remember that night? Isabella and I scrolled through it. Thought it was a burner account. Never said anything. Figured it wasn't our business." My throat went dry. "You read her messages and said nothing?" He shrugged. "It wasn't my marriage. Besides, I thought maybe you knew. You always seemed kinda checked out." I took a slow step toward him. "You thought I knew my wife was cheating and just didn't care?" He didn't flinch. "I thought you two had some kind of arrangement. Honestly, most of us did." And just like that, everything fell into place.
The weird looks, the fake smiles, the private jokes, the late-night texts between the couples that I was never a part of. I wasn't just the last to know. I was the one they'd excluded on purpose. They didn't protect me because they thought I was clueless. They didn't protect me because they assumed I was complicit. Sophia's face had gone pale. Wait, you all thought this? Noah looked around. Well, yeah. It wasn't just betrayal. It was humiliation, cemented and passed around like a shared understanding. My marriage had become a punchline, and I was the only one not laughing. I turned around, trying to breathe. That's when I saw it. Evelyn's purse was still by the door, and inside, something was buzzing. Another phone. A third one. And when I pulled it out and saw the lock screen, it wasn't Drill Sergeant texting her anymore. It was someone saved only as Orange Square. No name, no emoji, just a single orange square. And the newest message read, "Get out of there. Now he knows."
The room felt smaller the moment that third phone started buzzing. I could actually hear my own pulse in my ears, a slow and uneven drum that didn't belong to me anymore. Everyone was watching, but no one said a word. I reached into Evelyn's purse and pulled out the phone. Newer, thinner, different case. I didn't even know she owned this one. The orange icon glowed against the screen, and below it, the words pulsed again. "Get out of there. Now he knows." For a second, I wondered if the message was meant for her at all. Then I realized it had to be. She wasn't in the house anymore. Whoever Orange Square was, they thought she was still sitting somewhere near me, maybe still pretending to sip wine, maybe still laughing. The idea that someone somewhere was watching us in real time made my stomach twist. Sophia's hand landed on my shoulder. "Daniel, we should call someone," she whispered, her voice so thin it barely existed. "If there's someone following her." But I shook my head. No police, not yet. My voice didn't sound like mine. I wasn't thinking clearly. I just knew that this wasn't random. The other phone, the secret account, the messages timed perfectly. This was connected. Noah leaned back against the counter, his expression unreadable. "You think she's in danger? Or you think this is some drama stunt? Because honestly, man, this is getting weird." I turned to him slowly. "You think this is a game?" He smirked, but the look faded when I held up the phone. Someone out there knew she was about to be exposed, someone who's not in this room. Or at least that's what they want us to think. That made everyone go quiet again. Sophia whispered, "Then who's he? The text says he knows, not they, not you, he." It clicked in my head like a door finally unlocking. Whoever Orange Square was, they weren't warning her about me. They were warning her about someone else in this house. And suddenly, every face looked different. Ben was standing near the window now, staring into the dark yard like he was trying to see if someone was out there. Liam was pacing near the fridge, whispering into his own phone. Noah had gone still again, too still, like he'd practiced this exact kind of silence before. And the strangest thing, I could hear a faint vibration coming from under the couch cushion. Another phone, or something else entirely. I bent down slowly and reached under the cushion. My fingers touched cold metal. No, not a phone. A small, black, rectangular object with a blinking red light. A camera. Sophia gasped when I held it up. "You're kidding me." It was one of those tiny wireless nanny cams, the kind you could stick anywhere. The red light blinked like a heartbeat. Whoever had planted it had been recording everything. Every word, every accusation, every moment I thought I was exposing her. I'd been performing for someone else's footage. Noah cursed under his breath. "What the hell is that doing here?" I turned the lens toward him. "You tell me." He raised his hands. "Don't look at me. That's not mine." But Sophia wasn't looking at him. Her eyes were fixed on the corner bookshelf. "There's another one." And there was.
Another tiny lens tucked behind a framed photo, then another by the lamp. 3 of them in total. Someone had set this up. Not just Evelyn, someone with her. And then, like fate wanted to underline the insanity of the moment, the orange phone buzzed again. Orange square. "He's not who you think he is." I stared at the message, reread it twice, and felt something inside me twist in a way I can't describe. It wasn't fear this time. It was recognition. Because for the first time, I realized the text might not be about Evelyn's lover. It might be me. Sophia saw the look on my face. "Daniel, what does it say?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. My hands were shaking too badly. I just backed away from the couch, from the cameras, from all of them, and I stepped outside again into the cold night. The air hit my lungs like water. And for the briefest second, I thought maybe I'd wake up. Maybe it was all some insane dream. Then I heard a car engine start down the street. Headlights flashed once, then cut off. And through the dark, I saw her silhouette, Evelyn, standing next to a parked black SUV. She wasn't alone. Someone was standing beside her, half hidden by the shadows, tall and still, facing the house. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Not hers, mine. A message from an unknown number. "If you go closer, you'll regret it." And that's when I realized the real nightmare hadn't even started yet. The street was too quiet. No wind, no passing cars, not even a dog barking in the distance. Just that SUV sitting under the flickering streetlight, like it had been waiting there all night. And her, Evelyn, standing next to it like she belonged in the shadows now. Like she'd finally stepped out of the skin she wore around me for 7 years and showed me what she really was. But it wasn't her that stopped me in my tracks. It was him. The man beside her wasn't moving. His hands were tucked into the front pockets of a dark coat, head tilted just slightly toward me, like he'd already seen this moment. There was something off about him, something too still. And when he finally stepped forward, I felt it in my bones before I saw his face. He wasn't a stranger. He was my brother, Adrian. Same blood, same stupid chin, same lying mouth I trusted for years.
It hit me like a tire iron. My knees went weak, and for a second I thought the air had actually been sucked out of the night. I took one step forward, and Evelyn raised her hand. Not in warning, not in fear, but in guilt. That empty, exhausted kind of guilt that doesn't beg for forgiveness. The kind that just confirms what you already know. My voice barely came out. "Adrian, you're drill sergeant?" I laughed, but it came out broken. "Really? You couldn't even come up with a better fake name?" Adrian exhaled, like this was hard on him, like I was the one being unfair now. "Daniel, just listen." No, you don't get to speak first. You don't get to tell me how to process this. You think this is some movie scene where you explain everything and I suddenly understand? Evelyn stepped forward, but I flinched back. You don't speak either. Because if either of them said one more word, I knew I would break. And I couldn't afford to break right now. Not in front of them. Not in front of the people who turned my entire life into some grotesque private performance. Sophia appeared behind me, breathless, eyes wide. She saw them, saw him, and froze. "Wait, is that your brother?" I said flatly, "My own brother." I turned to Adrian again. "So, what was it? Some kind of revenge thing? You holding a grudge from when we were kids? Was she just convenient?" He shook his head, but I could see in his eyes that the excuses were already stacked like cards in his mouth, and I didn't want to hear any of them. But he gave them anyway. "It wasn't supposed to happen," he said. "It started when you were pulling away from everything.
You wouldn't answer her calls. You canceled 2 anniversaries. You were never home. I laughed, actually laughed. So you slept with her to fill in the gap? Jesus, you sound like a podcast guest trying to sell a course. Evelyn didn't argue. She just looked down. And maybe that was worse. The silence, the lack of even a half-hearted defense. She knew it wasn't the first betrayal that hurt. It was who did it. They didn't just cheat on me. They rewrote every memory we shared and edited themselves out. But that wasn't even the final blow, because the orange phone buzzed again, still in my hand, still blinking, and I looked down, expecting more warnings, more vague threats, more games. But instead, I saw a photo, a live photo taken seconds ago, of me standing in the street, face pale, hands shaking, Sophia behind me, Evelyn and Adrian in the background. The caption below it read, "You finally see them. Good. Now look behind you." I didn't move at first, but Sophia did. She turned her head over her shoulder, her breath catching in her throat. And when I followed her gaze down the sidewalk, past the fence line toward the hedges, I saw the 4th camera. Not inside the house, not in a purse, not planted behind a photo frame. This one had been strapped to a tree across the street, watching the house, watching us.
And someone was there. A figure in a hood, sitting silently on a low folding chair like they'd been there for hours. Hands in their lap, a phone glowing softly, recording everything. And suddenly I realized Orange Square wasn't just some contact. It was a username, a symbol, an identity. Someone outside of all of us. This wasn't just cheating. This was something else. For a moment, I couldn't move. I just stood there in the middle of the street, phone in hand, staring at that figure across the road. The glow of their screen lit up their face just enough to show they were wearing a mask. Not a scary mask, not something dramatic, just a plain, smooth face cover like the kind you'd see in a theater. Blank, pale, eyeless. Human, but not. It wasn't fear I felt. It wasn't even confusion. It was the cold, suffocating realization that someone had been playing this game longer than any of us. Watching it unfold, feeding it, controlling the narrative like a puppeteer hidden just behind the curtain. Sophia stepped closer to me. Her voice came out low and dry. "Daniel, do you know who that is?" I didn't answer. I didn't have the answer, and I hated that. I hated not knowing. I hated that there was still another layer I hadn't reached. This whole time, I thought I was climbing my way up from the bottom, exposing secrets one by one. But now, it felt like I'd only scratched the surface, and below me was something much worse. I turned back to Evelyn and Adrian, but they were already retreating back toward the SUV, not running, just walking fast like people who realized their script had run out. Adrian opened the passenger door and shouted, "We didn't know about that. Whoever that is, they're not with us." That should have comforted me. It didn't. I turned toward the figure again, still motionless, still watching. My phone buzzed. New message. Orange Square. You've seen enough to ask the right question now. And below it, but do you really want the answer? Sophia was reading over my shoulder. What does that mean? I whispered, I think this was never about the affair. She frowned. What else could it be? That's when it clicked. Not all at once, not like a movie montage. It was slower, messier, like puzzle pieces shifting in the dark until one finally locks into place and the whole image tilts into view. The second phone, the cameras, the extra profile, the live-streamed messages, the staged betrayals, the absence of anger from Evelyn when she was caught. She hadn't reacted like someone afraid of being exposed. She had reacted like someone already in the middle of a larger performance. I stared back at the masked figure across the street, then asked the question,
maybe out loud, maybe only in my head. How long have you been filming us? And right then, the porch lights from Liam's house behind us flickered and died. All of them. At once, Sophia jumped, and I instinctively stepped in front of her. The SUV's headlights flashed on for a split second, then blinked out again. Somewhere nearby, a motion light on another porch turned on, but it only cast more shadows between us and the figure on the folding chair. Then a sound, a chime, a soft ding. The masked figure stood up slowly, pocketed their phone, and turned away, not toward the sidewalk, but into the trees behind the house. They didn't run, they didn't hurry, just disappeared into the dark as if the night was absorbing them. I started after them, but Sophia grabbed my arm. "Daniel, don't! You don't know what you're walking into." I froze. Not because she was right, not because I was scared, but because part of me did know. That figure didn't need to run, because they were never hiding. This wasn't a spy. This wasn't some pervert with a drone. This was something orchestrated, structured. There were rules to it, scripts, triggers. I looked down at the orange phone again, hoping for one last clue, one more message. But instead, the screen showed a timer. 15 seconds. 14. 13. Sophia gasped. "Daniel, put it down, now!" 10. 9. We both stepped back from it like it was radioactive. I dropped it on the pavement and stepped over it, breathing hard. When it hit 0, nothing exploded. There was no sound, just a pause. Then the phone screen went white and displayed a message in all caps. "The ending has been recorded." Then it shut off. Not powered down, shut off permanently. Sophia knelt down beside it, her fingers hovering above the screen. Is it a virus or something?" I shook my head. "No, it's done." She looked up at me. "Done with what?" And I finally said it. The words that had been pressing into my ribs like blades all night. Filming us. Because somewhere out there, this wasn't just a betrayal. It was an episode. And someone had just wrapped production. I didn't sleep that night, even after the SUV drove off, even after the masked figure vanished into the woods, even after Liam found another hidden camera taped behind his thermostat and started shouting at everyone to get out. There was no closure, no final explanation, just silence and confusion, and people pretending they hadn't been part of something dark and twisted. And me, standing in the middle of it all, wondering if I'd ever understand what had actually happened. But here's the truth. No one tells you. You don't always get answers. Sometimes you just get a mirror. And when I looked into mine the next morning, I didn't see a victim. I didn't see a broken man. I saw someone who had let too many things slide for too long, who had ignored too many signs, who had loved someone harder than he loved himself. And that had to change. The next day, I packed a bag and left. No drama, no speeches. Just a quiet ride to a small cabin I'd once rented upstate for a second honeymoon. That never happened. I stayed there alone for a while. I disconnected. No social media, no texts, no game nights. Just books, long walks, coffee brewed too strong, and a slow rebuilding of a man I'd let get dismantled piece by piece for years. Sophia checked in after a few weeks. We started texting. At first, it was just updates. She left Liam, sold the house, changed jobs. Then it became daily chats, shared silence, honesty without performance. There was no romance, not at first. Just peace, something rare and quiet and healing. 3 months later, I went back into town. Evelyn was gone, no trace. Adrian, too. Their numbers disconnected. Mutuals stopped hearing from them. A few old friends admitted they'd received cryptic invites to a story-based experiment that required signing NDAs. The kind of thing bored tech guys and online clout chasers fall into when they want to feel important. I never found out who Orange Square was. Maybe it was real, maybe it was a test. Maybe it was just some lonely genius behind a screen conducting social experiments in betrayal and response. I stopped needing the answer. 6 months later, Sophia and I got coffee. It felt normal. No games, no masks. She looked tired, but honest. And for the first time in years, I laughed. Not politely, not bitterly, but the kind of laugh that shakes something loose inside you. We still talk. We take it slow. We've both seen what pretending does to people, but we don't pretend anymore. I never posted this story for revenge. I wrote it because if someone out there is sitting in the dark, feeling like they're the only one who didn't see the trap until it snapped shut, I want you to know you're not stupid. You're not weak. You're human, and you can rebuild. The ending they recorded wasn't mine. It was just theirs. Mine is still being written, and this time, I'm the one holding the pen.